Welcome to our Counseling Techniques demonstration video by Isaac Valencia and Jessica Watson. This video is an introduction to certain attending behaviors and how they impact the counseling process. We are specifically identifying and explaining what are known as attending behaviors: visual, vocal qualities, verbal tracking, and body language. Visual or eye contact can be described as maintaining eye contact without staring or glaring, with natural breaks in eye contact. Looking away may communicate disinterest or discomfort with the client or what is being said, or preoccupation with other things. Staring may create hostility. Meet Abigail. Abigail is a client seeking vocational rehabilitation services, particularly job coaching. She wants to improve her interviewing skills because she gets nervous when speaking to people she doesn't know. This nervousness leads to frustration. I agree to practice with mock interviewing. I ask Abigail a question and immediately stare at her until she answers. This behavior will not assist in facilitating good practice sessions and might lead Abigail to seek help elsewhere. Now let's talk about vocal qualities. Vocal qualities represent more than just a sound. We project emotions through voice, both intentionally and unintentionally. These are identified as the pitch in your voice, not flat, tone of voice, the overuse of ah. Additionally, respond latency, in other words, speaking at the appropriate times, not interrupting or jumping in too quickly. And appropriate modulation, not a flat pitch. Meet Thomas. Thomas has come to me for counseling, and this is his first session. I have one opportunity for a first impression. If my tone is flat, Thomas might think that I'm not interested in what he's saying. I make sure to respond with the appropriate pitch, tone, speed, and response latency. All of these reassure Thomas of both a level of professionalism and the effort to display an interest in what he is saying. Thomas feels valued. Moving right along with verbal following or tracking, where it is recommended that the counselor's responses follow the client's responses, and the avoidance of frequent and abrupt topic changes. For inexperienced counselors, this might be difficult as there is a need to find out as much as possible within the allotted time. Meet Beatrice. Beatrice has come to see me because she's interested in working but has some barriers that need to be addressed before she can begin working. She explains that she has no transportation and lives in a rural area with no public transportation. She also has an abusive husband that doesn't want her to work. Additionally, Beatrice has lost her children to foster care, which has led to a diagnosis of depression and anxiety. It might seem that all the issues should be addressed and a solution should be identified as soon as possible, but it's important to handle one situation at a time. And last, but certainly not least, we have body language. Body language tells us more than words themselves and is described as facing and slightly leaning towards the client, arms unfolded and relaxed posture, head nods and smiles, not overdone, facilitating client communication with natural gestures. Meet Daniel. Daniel is seeking assistance to find a job. He has autism, and being in the presence of someone he's unfamiliar with is difficult for him. He needs someone to understand that body language can be potentially uncomfortable for someone with ASD. He is very observant, and although he isn't a stickler for eye contact, he wants my undivided attention. It is important to recognize that body posture, appropriate head nods, and facing the client are indicators of giving them your full attention. Importance of positive attending behaviors show that you care enough to pay attention to the person and what he or she is communicating, and thus serves to build a positive working relationship. It also helps the person open up and allows them to tell his or her story. Considerable documentation shows that these positive attending behaviors influence how counselors are perceived. Positive attending behaviors help us to effectively communicate the warmth, caring, and interest in the person that we hopefully will actually feel. This is going to conclude our video, so thanks for stopping by. Remember the attending behaviors we have identified: visual, vocal, verbal tracking, and body language, and how important they are to the entire counseling process.